Welcome to the DevReady Podcast, where we're helping non-techs build better tech. Today, we're joined by Ahmed, who's the founder and CEO of Yobi. He'll tell you all about it, but it's touching right in the space of AI and how we can set up potentially digital clones for us to help with sales, communications, and channeling everything into one place from a business perspective. Ahmed, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate you coming on all the way from the US. What part of the US are you in?
Hey, thanks so much for having me. I'm coming to you from Los Gatos, California, which is in Silicon Valley. It's like a suburb of San Jose.
No,
Okay.
brilliant. Right in the thick of things. Yeah. Oh, very nice to come from there. So it's your afternoon there. It's our morning here in Melbourne. But yeah, really appreciate you coming on and joining us today and sharing your story. So, I mean, can you take us a little bit back? We'd love to find out about founders, their experience. How did you sort of start in the world of obviously some really AI-driven product? When did you start in AI?
I started out pretty early. I worked on the DARPA Grand Challenge, which led to the self-driving cars. If you're in America, especially if you're in things like that, a lot of people can tell how old I am by that. Because DARPA Grand Challenge has been a second iteration of that had nothing to do with self-driving cars. But yeah, self-driving cars, and it sounds a lot more grand than it is, because I remember the team at Cornell, we had a hard time getting the car out of the garage, essentially. But now
Push it out the garage.
around, it's pretty fascinating to watch the progress of AI, being in the field myself.
Yeah.
Then worked for the Department of Defense. We were doing artificial intelligence for unmanned aerial vehicles for a bit. That was really cool. Not nearly as killer drone-ish as it sounds. This is very rudimentary AI. And then actually built my previous startup on marketing, but using artificial intelligence to figure out which marketing calls were converting to clients for dentists. A very specific application of AI that made me a multimillionaire. Bootstrap that company too. So you could
Niching is very important, isn't it?
Yeah.
That niching piece. I think a lot of people who start in the world of technology maybe go too broad and can we solve one problem from one customer?
For a business, it's like necessary to niche, but probably more so in AI. If you can have that very specific domain that you're training and testing on, it's going to be a lot easier to get a result.
Absolutely. And just in general in business, right? If you have expertise in something where you automatically count out 99.999% of the world that can potentially be your competitor, it's hard. It's hard to not succeed there because there aren't that many other people competing with you. So in AI, of course, there's a lot more attention now, but even with all the attention, even with all the AI that's happening around here, there aren't a whole lot of people that actually know, what to do and how to build it and how to deliver it.
I agree. It's very early, and I think a lot of people are scrounging, sort of pick up the pieces, especially people in tech, trying to understand what to do with it. But if you've been around that for 20 plus years, you've obviously got a great base of expertise beyond what's just available from an API.
Yeah, and that's a real AI expert, not a ChatGPT expert with 7 years of experience since it's launched in December. As I've seen a lot of people on LinkedIn recently have said.
So that experience of being in the world of successful startup, it sounds like you've done quite well, maybe had an exit. What has that taught you about going into a new business or starting again in the world of Yobi?
So for being a geek to turning to a business person, I think that's a pretty crazy transition. And also those overlaps in itself gives you an extraordinary edge against your competitors. I really shouldn't say against your competitors. Those are just the words, right? Because in reality, what I've realized over the years is the race is against yourself, because I have not seen very many companies get crushed by outside factors so much as they get crushed by inside factors. Most of my own failures have been because of my own failures, It's oftentimes hubris. So the first few times when you stumble and and then you realize, like, hey, don't do these really silly things. So let me tell you this. I worked at a bunch of startups that were really great, and I did very well. And then I wanted to start my own company. And I accidentally stumbled on the idea for my startup because my friend, who is a dentist, he was basically getting a lot of phone calls. He didn't know where they were coming from. And he was paying $3,000 a month to Yellow Pages. Which, which to me was very, very offensive as a geek. It's like you're spending money on this book, $3,000 per month, and I just wanted to prove to him that he was not so smart. Except I didn't use nice words. I just wanted to prove to him that he was wrong for doing this. So I rolled up the solution in Asterisk that recorded all the inbound calls from his Yellow Pages and from all of these other sources like AdWords. Mm-hmm. And I inadvertently stumbled onto marketing attribution for dentists. I go back to him and I go, after 3 months, over 1,000 calls recorded, I listened to it. And this is how you know I'm really a geek dedicated to insulting a friend. Writing code so I can do this. And I go sit down and show this to him and I say, see, you're a horrible human being for contributing to global warming and everything else. He looked at the data. It's irrefutable. After 1,000 phone calls, only 56 of them were from Yellow Pages. And
effectively.
Yeah, and he got less than 6 patients out of it.
Oh,
so
wow. Okay.
Those are very expensive patients, whereas AdWords was doing great. Mm-hmm. So here's the hubris part. So I do this. He turns around. He goes, great, you'll be my marketer. And I was very offended by the fact that he called me that. And I took, but I had channeled my inner Steve Jobs and I said, okay, what do I get? And he's like, I'll give you all the money that I do for my marketing. You get this, $6,000 a month immediately. So I hired somebody online who actually still works for me. I hired somebody online to basically take the system and say, look at the things that are working, put more money towards that, and really, brainless type stuff. And then a few months later, he talked to some more friends and at a Thanksgiving party. I know you guys are from Australia, so Thanksgiving, November, turkeys.
Yeah, we hear about Thanksgiving. Never had experienced one, but we hear about it. We watch plenty of movies down here.
So we're at a Thanksgiving party where 2 other dentists asked me the same. It was like, will you be my marketer? And I'm like, oh my God, this guy's been telling people about this. There goes my reputation. But they offered me money also. So now I have 3 people paying me. I have over, I'm definitely making over $10,000 a month. And I haven't quit my previous job. And I have.
So this is all on the side. This is
right. It's all on the side because this is, this is not quite befitting of my capability of how badass of an engineer I am. So I'm sitting there talking to the person who manages it for me. His name is Chris. He's an awesome guy. And I say, Chris, I'm still trying to figure out exactly what kind of startup I should build, And I'm like recounting all the experiments. And he's really funny. He goes, sir, I feel like most people would consider having $10,000 a month in revenue as a business.
Definitely a great starting point with 3 clients.
And I had no
time at all.
I was like, I had no comeback. I go, wait, this guy's right. The only reason I don't think this is a business is because it's just, I built.
It's not the pocket that you expect it to be in, right? Sometimes we can stumble into things that are a little bit unexpected, and then we have to get attuned to, okay, this is different. So we feel uncomfortable. We don't feel like you're not a marketer. That's what you came in from, but you're coming in from a data-led market.
Yeah, the software play,
very different
data.
play. But you're getting your head around that would have been challenging because you're a deep tech guy, and I get that. Yeah.
Right. Also, I didn't tell my friends for the longest time. I was afraid I'd get ostracized. Everybody was saying, "Oh, I thought you were actually intelligent." But
the spite joke project actually worked.
Yeah.
So that was how you started your first business. I like it. That's a very weird story. I've never heard anything along those lines. So the problem was one of your friends was spending way too much on Yellow Pages ads. So you tried to really understand where his leads were coming from, and then in the end found that most of them were coming from Google Ads. Only 5%, I think it was, from Yellow Pages.
Right.
And then he basically handed over his money for his marketing to a technical guy, and then you went off and running.
And we optimized for it, right? And as we optimized for it, we helped them. So on average, we helped each one of our dentists make like $400,000 a year. Like normalized, not every single one, but on average, some of them actually made more than $1 million more than they were making before, just with this tiny little piece of information. And this is something e-commerce sites use all the time. It's just, cost per acquisition, figuring out cost per acquisition, lowering it, and increasing the number of customers.
Yeah, putting your attention to where they were actually buying from. And that was the early days of what was going on. What year was this when you started this business?
2012.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
it was
still
early.
early. Yeah, you got into
So I think around 2010 is when the story happened, right? And by 2012, I remember my fourth kid was born. Right around when my fourth kid was born, I just was like, hey, this is the perfect time to jump off and try entrepreneurship and whatnot.
Great time. Four kids, let's jump into a business. Yeah. It was generating revenue.
It's making money, though. You're not starting from scratch.
Exactly. Yeah. Brilliant. That's a great story. I've never heard anything along those lines. How long were you in that business for? So
I sold that company in 2018. At the end of 2018, because I'm not a marketer, another dental marketing company bought it. But the key, I learned a lot of lessons, like going from being just an engineer to understanding, hey, the real opportunities are at the intersection of engineering and business. So if there's that much information locked up in just the marketing calls, mind you, we didn't analyze all calls. We only analyzed marketing calls. So if there's that much data locked up in your marketing calls that can make a random dentist hundreds of thousands of dollars every year, imagine if you could get access to all of the data, and AI could probably better manage and better optimize your business than you could do yourself. So
I would say guaranteed to.
Yeah, there's no emotion, it's objectionable, it's just data-driven completely.
Exactly. So that's where I said, it would be really cool to build out a brain in the cloud, one that can just help me do a lot more of the communications. And the reason we focus on marketing, sales, and customer service is from a business perspective, that's where the money comes from. And as I became an entrepreneur, I realized those are the things that business people worry about. You have to bring money in to save money, right?
Yes, we need revenue in the business. So that's what every business is looking for.
What better way to deploy an AI than to help you make more money?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a no-brainer, really, and then proving that off the back of it. In terms of Yobi, when it started in 2019 roughly, but I'm sure the idea came as you were sort of trickling through. The gap, what did you do during the gap? Because I've said a successful exit. What was Didn't think I'll retire forever. What did you do in the gap?
I did have a little bit of a gap, and I became an investor, more in private equity, and that was actually really wonderful because I got to understand what holds private equity firms back. So private equity is trying to make things more efficient, right? You buy up a whole bunch of, let's say, dental offices, and you consolidate the management, right? Or you buy up car washes or ad agencies, and you consolidate, you optimize, you improve, you grow. And if you buy 10 businesses that are $1 million each, now you have a $10 million business. And if you do that times 10, now you have a $100 million business. Very different way of looking at growth. And I also experience where they have issues, right? Like optimizing is not an easy task. You have to bring in a business. You have to understand. You have to hire all these folks, right? And hopefully you're optimizing. And because if you don't,
there's a lot of more failed rates than I see success rates. You hear about the people that buy businesses and then they destroy businesses, and then the founder that sold them can buy them back at pennies on a dollar. So you hear these stories, it's like, wow, it's not an easy task, no, because you're consolidating at scale as you continue to bring businesses in. So different cultures, different people, different learnings, different ways of doing things. Yeah, quite a complex.
Absolutely.
Deposit pieces.
And they're also, right, one of the problems that I kept noticing across many businesses is marketing, sales, customer service, right? So if you give great customer service, folks come back. If you don't give great customer service, you lose people, right? Overall, I haven't met a single business that wanted to give bad customer service so far, right?
Well, no one wants to. It just happens somehow, I guess.
Right. So as I stared at it, I was at SRI for a little while, which is as entrepreneur in residence for just a little bit. And I just like stared back, and it just kept gnawing at me that, I built this cool thing, made money, did all right, but what do you do next? So despite the world being very much all about Bitcoin at the time, and unlike some counterparts, I actually know how to do cryptography, and beyond just like crypto, everybody thinks crypto money. I think crypto algorithms, right? And I sat out the whole crypto boom, so to speak. And instead, I focused on AI because this was very obvious to me. Like this is
upon reflection to a lot of people that compare, if they were to reflect, the value that crypto is bringing to the world compared to what AI can bring is very interesting. If you compare and have a good look,
just general crypto is not really bringing any value to anyone except for the casino. If you hit the right number, really,
the general crypto play is just a gambling mechanism and people just making money.
Yeah,
it's
the technology
costing money
is great behind
energy
it.
usage
From the technology and what it could do, but the energy and all the challenges behind it, and getting people onto the technology. People look at AI, the average person, mum and dad on the street, and they picked it up and using it. Mm-hmm. It's very different to say about crypto. People not everyone's gone in, learns about how to buy crypto, how to invest, what it looks like, etc. It's been an interesting sort of shift, and now it's all blockchain has really been pushed to the side, and it's all AI right now. That's what it's been since pretty much ChatGPT launched till 3.5 came out.
Yeah, I think it's important to be aware of hypes because. I'm a little afraid of the hype around AI. I personally am not a big hype guy. While hype is good, too much hype is bad because people are making irrational decisions. And often I've watched AI go through this cycle of people get really hyped. Do you remember the Watson days when Watson was going to do everything?
Yeah, it just fizzled out, didn't it, pretty quickly?
But it wasn't commoditized at that level. You had to be an engineer or someone at that very technical level to be able to use it. It's at a different point right now, I think.
Actually, the AI that I was working on before, right, and the transformers and all of this, from a technical perspective, it's actually been really impressive. It's just has not been adopted, hasn't been rolled out. So that's what I did, was I rolled out a little bit of AI in a very specific way, and I bootstrapped it. So that potential hasn't even been tapped. That's the reality. And one of the reasons that potential didn't get tapped was some folks oversold Watson or oversold what AI could do. And then once people were like, oh my God, this isn't the panacea for everything, they just threw the baby out with the bathwater. And we kind of tend to do that. Like in crypto, there's a lot of good technology. And then there were folks that did not understand cryptography right? And it was just straight hype. And whenever you have situations like that, I think
it creates a problem, doesn't it?
It actually undermines the technology itself. I personally believe now that crypto is no longer cool and getting back to the really geeky folks. And this was the first time I went to like a crypto conference because I think it's going to be AI that uses that technology. That technology is actually very hard to use. And if you had a synthetic agent, an assistant like I have, right, that you could speak with and you can say, hey, can you make a purchase for me? Can you do this? It can understand all the complications, that decentralization. A lot of those tech stacks can now be used with the user interface being a synthetic agent instead of the phone that we're used to, right? And I'm sure if you're sufficiently old enough, you remember a day before phones, before iPhones even, right? And how quickly the world changed. Now we take this for granted, right? I remember if I had to speak with someone in Australia in my younger days, I'd have to be like, hello? Wait a 2 seconds to get a
Can you hear me? Yes. That 3 second delay.
So it's like you're yelling to them through the phone line.
Right.
But I think like with the crypto, it was because there was an opportunity to make money for like a lot of money for a lot of people. But like if you probably query 99% of people who have done anything with it, they don't know crypto even stands for cryptography. They wouldn't understand the underlying anything of it. It's just how quick can we make money? It's like the wild, wild west. Right. Whereas with the AI, well, it is very hyped. There is real value being given to people with it. And it's not just a quick buck. So everyone can probably get onto it a lot easier. I can save time writing a blog post. Half an hour every day is a lot of time for some people.
That value is given right away. I think that's a big difference. You can perceive value quickly. I agree with that. That's the major difference in the world of cryptography compared to that, especially for the mum and dad or anybody that's the normal person that's not technical. The only thing they got out of crypto was potentially they made some money out of it, or lost a lot of money too.
Mostly lost.
Yeah. Made a lot of money and then lost it on the way down. Yeah, that's the world order it is. Let's not talk too much about that. Let's get into Yobi a little bit because we haven't touched upon it yet. And, so you started sort of thinking around sales, marketing, and communications and customer service. Clearly important to every business. I think, sales and marketing is everything around business. You can be a great delivery, but if you don't know how to sell or market, then it becomes quite complicated to find customers. And if you're not servicing customers well, they disappear pretty quickly as well. So to solve that problem, where did it start for you? What are some of the things that you started thinking through?
So the first thing I actually started thinking through is, why is it that my friend who's a dentist, a very smart person, right? Why is it that they were making these silly decisions and then I realized they're really busy. Folks who actually have a lot of money in their control, they tend to be busy and they tend to not want to learn new things. So whatever I built would have to be very, very easy. So we built it would have to be able to get so easy that they would just download it, ready to go, and it should start giving them value right away. And this is 2019, mind you, right? So I decided, okay, I'm going to build a unified communications app. And that sounds really weird, but it's basically going to be like your phone. Like I have my phone here and there's my Yobi right there. So my mom calls me on that one. My customers call me on this. So if I open that up, it brings all of my communication channels into one place and I can share that login with you. And like, as I go to sleep and you wake up, you can pick up right where I left off. And there's internal note systems, but it looks really, really simple and really easy. And I wanted to make sure that business owners, small business owners specifically, would adopt it. Mm-hmm. So I put in my own money. I knew that venture folks would say, this is insanity. You're going to build all this stuff out. But this is something I felt very strongly about, is that if I could get them to adopt it, connect their sales force to it, connect other sources of data to it, and then see value and made it super easy, that's the key to getting to that market and taking that market. And that's exactly what we did. We built the thing out. The first few months, we got 300 signups. And I remember talking to a very famous football player who's an investor who goes, "For your sake, I hope that was worth $1 million." I was like,
wasn't enough.
It was very like, oh my God, for my sake, I hope that was right too. Yeah. And then suddenly, 1 month, it went from 300 to 1,000 customers, like 1,000 businesses signing up. Yeah, wow. And then like the next 1,000 and the next 1,000, and then I was like, yep, this is becoming very serious. And we hadn't done any marketing even till now. Our marketing engine is still not on, because we'd been experimenting and iterating on the product, and almost all of the customers that we have, more than like 16,000 signups, businesses now, have been purely organic. And we support all of those customers using Yobi, so we eat our own dog food. What folks don't know is we only have 2 customer support people, 2 human customer support.
16,000 customers. Oh, wow. Okay.
16,000 businesses, over 20-something thousand users.
So businesses, how many users? Yeah, 27,000. Yeah. And you got 2 customer support people. Wow. Okay.
So we wanted to prove out that it actually works, so we use it on a pretty regular basis. Mm-hmm. a sad fact actually was we wanted to make sure that it's sticky. We accidentally made a release over the iOS app. It was unauthorized. That broke the app. And, it takes a day or two to roll out a fix. Beyond that, I was livid. I was like, this is over. We're done. Yobi's done. I can't believe this happened. And then, my customer support folks calls me later on that day and says, oh, the customer is good. I said, how? We haven't really, but they switched to Android.
Oh, so they just had to keep it going.
Yep. I was like, good. I think we're building something useful here.
They switched to
definitely.
Android. Wow. Okay, that's
They
cool.
want, because it's the business, right? There's a lot of money
operates.
involved. There's a lot of communication, and once people start using something, they learn it. Oftentimes, money is not the problem. Oftentimes the problem is like, does this thing actually give me enough value? So we did subsequently fix iOS, and we put guardrails in place. So,
Yep.
hotshot developers like myself can't just deploy with App Store.
You have to learn from those mistakes.
But it says a lot at that moment in time where you're thinking it's all over, and then all of a sudden you just got more validation than you could have ever imagined by that comment.
Yeah.
We're switching to Android. Wow, they're willing to switch to Android because of our product?
Yeah.
That says a lot.
And we haven't, so the AI clones, what we ultimately do is the synthetic clones. And like I mentioned, we eat our own dog food, and this is my synthetic clone. It sounds like me, so if you follow me on LinkedIn or Twitter or anywhere else, and you wonder how Ahmed's like one of the most accessible CEOs in Silicon Valley, it's because most of the times you're talking to this guy.
Hey there. My name is Ahmed Reza, and I am the founder of Yobi, an AI communication app for businesses, and the co-founder of...
So this is Italian. I don't speak
Ciao.
Italian.
Il mio nome è Ahmed Reza e sono il fondatore di Yobi, un'app di comunicazione basata sugli app per le imprese, nonché il cofondatore di tre
It's classic.
organizzazione no profit dedicata alla...
You've got the marketing there for
Also,
Brooklyn if you
also
type it.
Chinese as of recent.
嗨
recent.
我叫艾哈迈德·拉扎 （Ahmed Reza），是 Yobi 的创始人，一款面向企业的 AI。
In terms of that, having that at your fingertips, what has that done for your business? So you mentioned you don't market, but how are you using that? Like
So-
real world, what are you doing with that particular voice? And how's that transpiring in the face of a customer or someone you're engaging with?
So
Because
this
I think
is pretty
there's
hot off the press, but one of the things that I did was I built my synthetic agent, and I'm happy to give my phone number and my Twitter and everything else to all of your viewers and listeners. I was speaking to a lot of investors in Silicon Valley, and I realized this is very repetitive. Like if I was really good, I would have them talk to my synthetic agent who can give them all of the details, right? Because they're usually asking you the same things. What's Yobi? And, so I started doing that as I started letting my synthetic agent take over pitches. And what we built is what we call the goal-oriented conversation engine. We're working on a better name for that, some cooler name for it. But what it does is, unlike a unlike a classic LLM, which can go off and hallucinate, it's a lot more constrained because in businesses, it's a good idea to be constrained and to just talk about business. You're in Australia. I don't know if an American number would work out there, but I can.
Oh, if you do +1, it'll come
it
through.
does, yeah, we can connect. Yeah.
So if
definitely.
anybody's interested, if you can text me at 402-698-3599. Again, like 402-698-3599. And my synthetic agent can do something I can't. It can talk to 700 people like at the exact same time. The voice cloning that we have not deployed that at all. That one is a little bit slow, but it can do podcasts. And
So you can have a podcast. Are we actually talking to you? I mean, we got a clone here.
Synthetic video as well.
A couple of completely AI generated podcasts. I sent it to my mom. If you're in AI, just being able to send your mom stuff is, for me, that was a really high bar because most of my life she had no idea what I was doing. So I sent that to her, and she's like, "When do you get time to do these podcasts?" Right? And I was like, "Mom, that's not me."
So she had no idea. So that's a good tick. If mum doesn't know, you've done well.
Yeah, so the podcast, it can do live real-time conversations. We're still working on, because customer experience is extremely important. And if somebody says hello and it feels like, it feels worse than calling Australia in 1985, that's not going to be a great customer experience.
If you still had those phone lines, though, it'd probably seem like a normal conversation with a delay. You wouldn't have a problem.
Yeah. So on the phone, there's a little bit of a delay if there isn't a lot of background noise right now. And there are quite a few other companies that are, racing ahead with this as well. But yeah, it doesn't take much to see. This is real. This is here. It's already providing a lot of value for myself, in creating posts. I essentially generated myself into a mini influencer. Before generative AI, I didn't post a whole lot on LinkedIn or anywhere else. I'd post here and there. And then once generative AI started coming to fruition, so middle of last year, when Stipulate AI started putting out their stuff, and there was a little bit of commotion on DALL-E, so I thought to myself, okay, let's try this thing out. Let's fire up some GPUs, and there's going to be an open source community around it. We were testing out Bloom, which was a large language model, which is an open source large language model. For the life of me, couldn't figure out what it was saying. So you would say hi, and it would say these things. And eventually we realized it was either speaking French or German back, because it was trained on all the languages. But yeah, knew that this was going to be big. The computer can speak, it can generate text. And the first time my social media, like my LinkedIn, hit 100,000 impressions, I was like, wow, this is really impressive. I've never been able to achieve that myself. And then it's been doing that ever since. I think just my LinkedIn posts have gotten over 1 million impressions.
Wow.
Something far, and the subjects are generated based on like things that I've trained it. It speaks in my voice. It doesn't speak outside of the domain of expertise that I have, so it's not misrepresenting me. It's really cool, and it's also really scary too, because the world that we live in is going to materially change here very soon.
And you're using it in the right way.
Yeah.
That's, I think, the scary part is it. As soon as it starts going the wrong way and people start imitating you, or along those lines, that's where it's going to get interesting.
It's the reason why we didn't want to just take the tech and throw it out to everyone just for a quick buck. We have to understand what's the right way to use it. There's good ways to use technology and make money and bring prosperity for all. And there's bad ways to use technology and, accelerate scams.
Yep. We're getting a lot of warnings here for scams where it's people are pretending to call it's a child calling their parents saying they've lost their phone, they need new money for a phone. Like, that's a scam, but it's doing clones of the voices as a phone call.
Right. I just spoke with my banker earlier today, and I'm a pretty regular, target. So whenever I have a new employee that comes on, I tell them, like, make sure you check who the email is coming from, who the text is coming from, right? And today I called one of the larger banks here. I won't say their name. One of the authentication mechanisms is voice. I was thinking to myself, like, you better throw those systems away.
Yeah.
You better throw those systems away, because if that's what's protecting, if that's what's protecting our money, we're going to be in trouble. Because that technology is not a future theoretical thing. It's here.
It's here now.
Yeah, and it'll take them a long time to roll something out and test it properly to then change it and figure out how to counter those things.
That's the same thing here. We've got our tax department in Oz. It's a voice. Our bank's voice. Everything's voice. You've got the ability to send money greater than with voice detection. So yeah, it's going to become a big issue pretty quickly. You would think, with the type of technology you're talking about, people get access to someone's voice. If you ring someone, have a conversation with them, you can potentially build a clone from it. That becomes quite scary.
Well, I think what I read a couple of weeks ago is Meta has a model that can clone someone's voice, and they state it's only 2 seconds of audio that they need to accurately clone the voice. So you wouldn't all you needed them to say hello and who's this, what are you doing, and that's probably enough.
Yeah, and you're done.
Right. For certain kinds of voices, yes. There's a little bit of exaggeration there. Because,
I'm sure there would be. Yeah, there always is. There's a bit of
exaggeration.
Selling on that.
It can do that, but if you have just a conversation like this one, it's surprisingly easy to clone voices from high quality audio. My big solution for that is really just to lean into people's inner goodness. Like being a hacker from the 90s, I know what you could do. I know what you could do if you just knew how to, if you just thought about it for a second. The entire World Wide Web ran on HTTP, not HTTP. So if you had things like Wireshark, and of course, being a punk teenager, hacking was the first thing you do. And a lot of punk teenagers did that. And they didn't destroy institutions. They didn't destroy the world. They didn't destroy banks, primarily because people, I believe, are inherently good. And technologists, especially the geeks, we often do things just to show off to other geeks and talk about, hey, wasn't that cool, right? At the end of the day, I think we all want to be happy. Most technologists, actually almost all technologists that I've met, get into the field to help make the world a better place because of their own curiosity, right? And happiness is very closely tied to it. So our humanity is what I'm betting on that helps save us from some of the really horrible ramifications of what you can do with AI. And so far, we've seen some of the ramifications, like we have these algorithms on social media that can get us addicted to the phone or whatnot. And a lot of that was unforeseen. But now that we know that, hey, human beings have shortcomings. Like you hit us with enough dopamine, we will keep paying attention to those moving lights. And if we do that and are short-sighted and just about profits and that's it, we are going to kill ourselves. We are going to destroy ourselves. Maybe not as dramatically as Terminator, but maybe as, foolishly as like mass mental illness, which is starting to happen. You're starting to see some of those things. And I don't think anybody really meant to do that. Or if they'd known, they would have done things differently. So as we stand on the precipice of AI, the age of AI, I've been speaking to a lot of fellow technologists and asking them to learn more about philosophy and about the world, because early on, I simply didn't recognize or realize how powerful the technology that I was working on was. It was just cool. Now I look back and I go, okay, this is insanely powerful. It is undeniable how powerful it is. And as a technologist, I do have a moral obligation to my fellow man to make sure I build things that are good. And there were physicists that built, Oppenheimer just came out, right? Physicists built bombs, but every physics PhD that you meet probably does not strike you as like, oh my God, this guy's going to kill me, right? You're like, oh, what a geek.
For them, it's just the science and experimentation and that.
Which is similar for tech. Right?
Frontier of unknown.
But that's not what physicists do, right? Physicists do physics, and if you go to any random physics department and you're like, hey, I need to build a bomb, they'll call the cops on you, and you will no longer be welcome there, right? Thank God. Thank God for that, right? And same, I think that's the same for practitioners in AI in the computing space. Like there's DEF CON, there's hackers, and there's ways to be an ethical hacker. Yes, there's some unethical ones, and it's caused by economic issues and whatnot. But this one is really big. It's beyond economics. So I think as you work on artificial intelligence, it's really important to make sure you bring your humanity to the table. So I don't think humans are out of the game or out of the loop by any means. Jobs change significantly, but these things are, they can write papers, they can do all of these other things, but they're just like your self-driving car, right? I'll be scared when your Tesla goes for a drive by itself, just for the heck of it. Right? Yes,
there's a human behind it. It's, or at least watching it is going to be needed, I believe, for quite a while. Yeah, I agree. Back to Yobi for a moment. What's your vision? What's your goal? Where do you want to be with Yobi?
So what we're hoping to build is a future where we power entrepreneurs, because I feel like that's the entrepreneurial spirit is very core to not just the American dream, but probably in Australia and in Ghana, all over the world, where people want to, create more prosperity. And what you notice is these entrepreneurs, these business folks, right? they're the ones that are often volunteering, that are feeding, that are, moving the world forward. And if we can use artificial intelligence to power them in ways where it's currently draining, like you're having the same conversation a million times, a salesperson genuinely does want to speak with you, but wants to have a deeper conversation. Maybe one like this, where, get to share a laugh and share an experience that enriches our lives a little bit more than just regurgitating the same thing you've said a million times, right? So being able to power people to do more with their lives, especially in the context of business, which is something that we understand well, that personally has been a dream of mine and for the Yobi team, of bringing AI to the world that can help create more. Like, think about construction equipment. When it first came about, you no longer have to dig ditches. You could be worried that, oh my God, what am I going to do with a shovel and these powerful arms? Well, now you have a backhoe and you have all this stuff you can now terraform, and you can create skyscrapers. So we can't wait to power the humans that will create the skyscrapers, right? These future cities that hopefully will be full of abundance and happier humans.
It changes the landscape.
Yeah.
Sorry for the pun, but that's what it does.
It gives us an ability to do more than we ever could have done. And I think people get lost in that, because we look at where we are today, and there are people out there concerned about their jobs, and people are losing jobs in some aspects and bits and pieces. And you hear a bit about marketing and that copy area that's getting hit right now. But in reality, we're going to be able to do a lot more than we've ever done and what we ever could imagine. 200 years ago, no one could imagine a skyscraper up in the sky, 500 meters up, whatever it might be. So there was no real imagination of that. But what's possible in the next 100 years, we probably can't even imagine that right now. So as technology evolves, our thinking and our ideas evolve with it, and you'll see that with AI again, and then we'll evolve to something bigger and hopefully better. I think as a world, we sometimes can go in weird sort of places, and it'll be interesting to see what the output is over the next 10 years, because there'll be significant change in terms of what we do on a daily basis, guaranteed.
Absolutely.
It's been a pleasure joining us on the DevReady Podcast. Really great to meet you. Learn a bit about Yobi. If anyone wants to learn a bit more, probably call that number and you get a sales pitch from your clone. I think that'll be quite an interesting effort. I'm going to do that myself, and just might put it on LinkedIn after we follow this episode, because I think it'll be a bit of fun to see what I actually get from it. But let's stay connected. Really would love to hear about your experience. Are you doing much in Oz, or is it basically focused in the US, got any clients globally, or where's it going, the product so far?
So I look at the world a little bit more globally around this, because, we probably watch very similar shows. I just brought up Oppenheimer, and you weren't like, what? What's that?
Oh, no,
right?
It came out last week.
Everything's very similar here now. Yeah. It's not 3-4 months later.
So you'd be surprised. You could go to Algeria, or you could go to Turkey. I bet you they're watching the same things, right? There's a lot of the same. And the markets, to me, are a lot more homogenous and a lot more globalized than they have been before. So, plus Australia has something really interesting. It's superannuation, right? They call it.
Mm-hmm. Yes. It's the savings account.
Yeah, a disproportionately large percentage of you are millionaires. So,
in retirement.
AI investor seekers are coming. I guess I should get on a plane and get down there to the right Melbourne this time, because I used to be in Melbourne, Florida, and everybody thought I was in Australia.
If you say Melbourne, they would, but, especially talking globally.
I expect a lot of innovation to actually even come out from down under, because number one, you guys have money, you have insane amounts of talent, and in a world that's a lot more connected, where the markets are more global. If the governments are open enough to allow that trade and to not over-regulate, but keep a very, very close eye on it, I think all of us come out better, more connected.
Yeah, agree.
Couldn't agree more. Really, thank you for joining us on the DevReady Podcast. Stay in touch, maybe another 6 months, 12 months to reconnect, see how things are going in the world of Yobi, and with you too. It's more about the founder. what? I've got one more question for you. What still gets you up in the morning? Because I can see tech excites you. What's the value that you get getting up in the morning? What is it for you? I haven't asked that question.
Oh, I wake up super early. I wake up like 4 a.m. my time.
Oh, you're a 4 a.m.er.
Yeah, and I can't wait to like get up, and I feel very privileged to be able to do what I do. And this is something I learned very early on. One of my mentors, Mike Milken, he's done very well for himself and is a big force in the world. And I was very fortunate to be a recipient of the Milken Scholarship and some mentorship. And what he taught me early on is it's not about how wealthy you are. We just think, hey, if you're here, we think very linearly. So no, you get some level of wealth beyond which you no longer have to work, but you get to choose how do you live and what would you do. And he asked me, he said, how would you live and what would you do? And if you're too extravagant, that number is going to be higher. That freedom number is going to be higher and higher. And if you're not very extravagant, you're going to be freer earlier in life because the only truly scarce commodity is time. You will die, right?
Yes,
that's a good
we
place
will.
to start. So every morning, if you get to wake up and do the things that you love to do and live in a way that you would not regret living, to me, that's a huge blessing. I live in Silicon Valley. I get to meet amazing people, travel around the world, but not just for leisure. Like I love working. It's like playing video games or playing Legos. I can't believe that I get to do this and people value this, right? And seeing it come to fruition, seeing my technology being used by folks. So when I fly in an aircraft, I was in the travel industry, so Wi-Fi in the air, like it fascinates me. Or when you get boarding passes in America, most of the boarding passes were C++ code that I wrote for a startup, a few startups back, right? Oh, well. So just seeing this technology live, going, wow, this is so cool. I can't believe I get to do this. So that's what wakes me up every morning is being able to, live meaningfully.
Mm. Oh, brilliant. I can see you really love what you're doing, passionate about what you're doing. And it's going to be probably a little bit of a wild ride over the next few years, the world of AI. And I'm sure you're going to have a lot more fun and enjoyment in the space. So thanks again for joining us on DevReady Podcast. Really been a pleasure. We've gone a little bit longer than we normally would, but yeah, it's been a really great conversation. So really enjoyed your time. So really nice to meet too.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
You too.
You too.